an urgent work matter and left me alone in the hospital with a high fever. That evening, his childhood friend posted a picture on social media, her, Tomas, and a massive birthday cake. The caption read, "Someone who truly loves you will show up for your birthday no matter how important their other commitments are." No one liked the post because everyone knew exactly who she was aiming it at, me, the official girlfriend. I didn't react. I simply left a comment. "Wishing you both all the happiness in the world." When Tomas left me at the hospital, my fever was burning at 102 F. I didn't make a fuss. I waited, convinced that once he finished his work emergency he would come back to celebrate my birthday with me. I waited all night. What I got instead was a new photo on social media, Jessica's post. In the picture, Tomas stood beside her, a towering 3-tier cake between them. Her caption read, "Someone who truly loves you will show up for your birthday no matter what." I called Tomas immediately, furious. He sighed. Jessica had an episode. She wasn't in a good place emotionally. I had to be there for her. She's like a sister to me. "Evelyn, stop thinking so dirty, will you?" Then he hung up. He didn't reach out for days. He had told me he was handling something urgent at work, that he would come see me once it was done. Meanwhile, my fever refused to break, lingering for days. But my mind had never been clearer. I started to question everything. Was this relationship even worth continuing? This wasn't the first time we had fought because of Jessica. And every time Tomas would use the same excuse. "She's like a sister to me. Don't overthink it." Every time I had been the one to let it go, to smooth things over. But this time I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness. I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. Maybe because I wasn't the one reaching out, Tomas finally called me first. "I'll pick you up from the hospital this afternoon." "No need. I can take a cab." For the first time he was offering me an olive branch. And for the first time, I didn't take it. I didn't even check my phone. I simply lay back down and went back to sleep. I packed my things in silence and took a cab home. Tomas wasn't back yet. I didn't call to ask where he was. I didn't remind him to come home. Instead, I cooked myself a simple meal, ate, showered, and went to bed early. No waiting. No worrying. And I slept like a baby. The next morning I woke to the sound of the door unlocking. Tomas stepped into my room. "Evelyn." I turned over lazily. "Tomas, you're back." I didn't throw myself into his arms like I used to. Instead, I just rolled over and went back to sleep. He stood there for a moment before speaking. "Jessica had another episode last night. I was worried about her, so I stayed a little longer." "Sorry, babe." My tone was light, indifferent. He frowned. "I know you're mad, but Jessica really needed me." I let out a soft chuckle and met his eyes. "Matt, don't worry. I don't mind. A brother taking care of his sister, that's perfectly normal, isn't it?" He fell silent. After a beat he sighed. "Evelyn, I know I've been neglecting you lately. Tomas, you should get some rest." "I'm going back to sleep." I cut him off, closed my eyes and shut him out completely. Tomas stood there, visibly frustrated. He had never seen me like this before. When I woke up, the dining table was covered with food. Tomas had cooked. That was new. I used to beg him to cook for me. Every time he'd wave me off impatiently. "Evelyn, do you really have to eat food I make? You're not a child, just cook for yourself." I'm exhausted from work. Yet, no matter how exhausted he was, he always had time to rush to Jessica's place and cook her a feast the second she called. So it was never about being too tired. He just didn't want to cook for me. "Evelyn, I made lemon fish. Your favorite. Go freshen up and eat." Thanks for the effort." When I came back, he had already set the table for me. That had never happened before. He even picked out the fish and placed it on my plate. "More, Evelyn." I smiled, picked up the piece of fish and set it aside. "I've never liked fish," I said lightly. "Jessica does. You must mixed us up." "But you used to." Tomas stared at me, stunned. I ignored him and focused on peeling my shrimp, eating at my own pace. Every time we went out to eat, Tomas would order fish. Not because I liked it, because I didn't. But since he always made a show of thoughtfully ordering for me, I pretended to enjoy it, finishing every last bite. A phone call interrupted our meal. Tomas shot up from his seat, visibly tense. "Evelyn, I can't stay. Jessica's having another episode." "Go ahead. It's fine. He's more important." I kept my head down, focused on my food, never bothering to look at his expression. Every time Tomas and I had a moment to truly talk, Jessica would pull the same stunt, luring him away. And every time Tomas knew exactly what she was doing, yet he still played along. After I finished eating, I packed up the leftovers, storing them neatly in the fridge. I took a few more days off to recover. Then, at Susan's relentless urging, I finally returned to work. She greeted me with a transfer notice in hand. "Evelyn, are you really not considering the Manhattan headquarters? The opportunities there are leagues beyond what we have here." I had turned her down countless times before. Manhattan's too far. I'd get homesick. The truth was, I had been afraid. Afraid that if I moved too far away from Tomas, he'd forget about me entirely. I used to imagine if I really went to Manhattan, would Tomas miss me? Would he be heartbroken? But now, I doubted it. I had waited for years, believing we were building a future together. Yet Tomas had never once mentioned marriage. Whenever the topic came up, he always brushed it off. "Evelyn, I'm just not ready yet. Once my career stabilizes, I promise I'll propose." But thinking about it now, I finally saw the truth. I had wasted enough time. I took a deep breath. "Susan, I've made up my mind. I'm going to Manhattan." Susan blinked in surprise. "Wait, seriously? You're finally ready to let go of Tomas?" I smiled and shook my head. "I just want to broaden my horizons." That evening Lucy called, dragging me out for drinks. I agreed. Ever since I got together with Tomas, I had barely seen my friends. Lucy slung an arm around me, laughing. "That's the spirit. You need to cut loose once in a while." We drank late into the night and I ended up crashing at her place. When I woke up, my phone was flooded with missed calls and messages from Tomas. I called him back. He picked up instantly, his voice sharp with irritation. "Evelyn, where the hell have you been? I called you all night. You've never stayed out all night before." I yawned, stretching lazily. "I was out drinking with Lucy. Got tired, so I stayed over." "Evelyn, what kind of attitude is that? Do you have any idea how worried I was?" I could practically see his scowl through the phone. Funny, because I remembered all the nights I stayed up waiting for him. The nights he went out drinking only to end up passed out at Jessica's place. I had called him over and over, sent message after message. And in the end, all I got was a casual, "Why are you making such a big deal out of this? It was just one night." So I smiled and said, "Tomas, why are you making such a big deal out of this? It was just one night." "Fine. Just come home." His tone softened. "We'll pick you up. Let's go grab something to eat." "Sure." I waited outside Lucy's place. Taxi after taxi passed by. "Miss, need a ride?" a driver asked. I shook my head. "No, someone's coming for me." From his place to here, the drive should have taken 15 minutes. I waited for over half an hour. Finally, his car pulled up. And in the passenger seat sat a very familiar figure. Jessica. The window rolled down. Jessica leaned out, her tone light and sweet. "Evelyn, I'm sitting in the front. You don't mind, right?" I climbed into the back seat without hesitation. Why would I mind? Tomas cleared his throat. "Jessica's power is out, so I figured we could all grab dinner together. That okay?" His eyes flickered to mine in the rearview mirror. I shrugged. "Fine by me." Tomas frowned slightly. Something was different. Before, I would have thrown a fit. But this time I didn't say a word about Jessica taking the front seat. At dinner, Tomas cut up a steak and placed it neatly in front of Jessica. Jessica turned to me with a smile. "Evelyn, don't be upset, okay? Taking care of me has just become a habit for Tomas. I'm always the first thing on his mind." I smiled faintly. "Why would I be upset? You two have such a great sibling bond." Tomas, clearly uncomfortable, hurriedly cut a piece of steak for me as well. I didn't eat it. The waiter arrived with the last dish and glanced at Jessica with envy. "Miss, you're so lucky. Your boyfriend really loves you." Tomas' brows furrowed, his expression darkening, but Jessica basked in the compliment. "Evelyn, you're not mad, are you?" Jessica asked sweetly, but I knew better. She wanted me to snap, to lash out. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Why would I be mad? You two look great together. I smiled as if none of this had anything to do with me and continued eating. Jessica sighed theatrically. "It's such a pity. If I hadn't fallen ill back then, maybe Tomas and I would have." Jessica. Tomas snapped, his expression darkening. Jessica immediately looked wounded, tears welling up. "I'm sorry, Tomas. I shouldn't have come. I'll leave." She covered her face, feigning distress. Tomas hesitated, casting me a conflicted glance. "Go after her," I said. taking a sip of my drink. Make sure she's okay. He shot up from his seat. We'll be back soon. We'll take you home later. All right. I enjoyed my dinner at a leisurely pace, savoring every bite. I knew Tomas wouldn't be coming back. Sure enough, as soon as I got home, my phone rang. Evelyn, where are you? I'm home. My tone was calm. I told you Idaho drive you back. There was a hint of reproach in his voice. I figured you wouldn't come, so I took a cab. I remembered all the times I had asked him to pick me up and he would brush me off, irritated. Why can't you just go home by yourself? Can't you see how busy I am? This time he was the one left in silence. I hung up without another word and went on with my night, applying a face mask as if nothing had happened. As expected, Tomas didn't come home that night. But I still slept soundly. Surprisingly, when I woke up, Tomas had already made breakfast. You're up. Come eat. Tomas cooking so frequently was a rare sight. I sipped my coffee and he stared at me, troubled. Evelyn, do you know what time I got back last night? I shook my head. Oh, why? Before, if he was out past 10, I would always call, asking when he'd be home. But lately I hadn't called or texted once. I hadn't even cared if he smoked an entire pack of cigarettes at home. All I said was, you should smoke outside. The smell's too strong. Sometimes I didn't even acknowledge him at all. Tomas shifted uncomfortably as if something was slipping through his fingers. Evelyn, we're adults. If you're upset, just say it. Don't act like this. He finally cracked. I finished my last bite, set my utensils down and stood up. I have nothing to say. I'm full. Time for work. We'll drive you. For the first time, he offered to take me to the office. I remembered how I used to beg him to drop me off. And he would always refuse. Jessica needs me to take her. She's sick, she has no choice. You do. Why can't you just be more understanding? I smiled faintly. All right. Thanks. Tomas studied me as we walked to the car. Evelyn, you've changed. His voice trailed off. He didn't finish his sentence, but I could tell he felt it. The distance. The unfamiliarity. He opened the front passenger door for me out of habit. I walked past him and slid into the back seat. He froze. Evelyn, why are you sitting back there? I chuckled. Does it matter? I used to fight him over this. Why does Jessica always get the front seat? I'm your girlfriend. And he would sigh, exhausted. Are you seriously jealous over something so petty? Can't you be more mature? When we arrived at my office, he hesitated before speaking. Evelyn, I have a corporate event tomorrow night. I can bring a +1. Sounds nice. I stretched lazily, indifferent. You can come with me. He frowned slightly, waiting for my response. I used to fight for moments like these, opportunities to be seen, to be acknowledged as his girlfriend. Tomas had never taken me to these events before. In fact, he rarely introduced me as his girlfriend at all. All right. I nodded simply and walked into the building. Inside, Susan handed me the final transfer documents. You're really sure about this? I signed without hesitation. Yeah. I'm going to Manhattan. I hadn't told Tomas yet. And I had no plans to. As soon as I got into Tomas' car, I saw Jessica sitting in the passenger seat. Evelyn, you don't mind, right? She said with a sweet smile. I was the one who begged Tomas to bring me along. I've never been to one of his corporate events before. Her hand was wrapped around Tomas' arm. He didn't pull away. At that moment, I felt like the outsider. I smiled faintly. It's fine. Actually, why don't you two go without me? I still have some work to finish up. Tomas frowned. Evelyn, you already agreed to come. Now you're backing out. You have Jessica with you. You don't need me there. I glanced at the time. Just drop me off at the office. Tomas exhaled sharply, irritated, and drove me to the front of my building. I stepped out without a second glance. Tomas, is Evelyn mad? Jessica leaned against his shoulder, her voice soft and pitiful. Tomas let out a cold laugh. Let her be. I settled onto my couch, scrolling through my phone when a notification popped up. Jessica had just posted a new Instagram photo. She was leaning against Tomas' shoulder. The caption read, "Real care means always wanting to keep me by your side no matter what." Jessica loved flaunting everything about her life online. I used to follow her just to keep tabs on her and Tomas. But now, it felt pointless. I unfollowed her without hesitation. Her post was meant for me, but no one liked it. Everyone was waiting to see how I, the official girlfriend, would react. I didn't care. Because soon enough I wouldn't be his girlfriend at all. That night my phone rang. It was Tomas' number, but when I picked up, Jessica's voice came through. Evelyn, Tomas is drunk. He fell asleep at my place. Got it. Then I'll leave him in your care. I hung up. Jessica had only called to gloat. She wanted me to react. Jessica and Tomas had been childhood friends, almost something more. Until his mother put a stop to it because of Jessica's fragile health. Now I wondered, was I just a convenient excuse to pacify his mother? I took a shower, watched a movie and went to bed early. Then in the middle of the night my phone rang again. Tomas. Evelyn, I'm drunk. I know, I said calmly. Jessica will take good care of you. Silence. I hung up and pulled my blanket over me. Once upon a time, if Tomas ever called me drunk, I would rush out no matter how late it was, pick him up and bring him home. I even tried to stop him from drinking too much. But he always complained to his friends. He's so annoying. Always nagging, always controlling. I have no freedom at all. It's suffocating. Not like Jessica. He lets me be me, she never tries to rein me in. To prepare for my move to Manhattan, I had to wrap up all my work and hand everything over smoothly. 4 days I buried myself in tasks, barely pausing to breathe. Lucy, worried about me, dragged me out for drinks. You need a break, she said, pulling me toward the bar. If you keep this up, you'll work yourself to death. I smiled. Maybe she was right. Be honest. She asked after a few drinks. Are you really okay with leaving? With leaving Tomas? If she had asked me before, my answer would have been no. For years my dream was simple: marry Tomas, have a family, live a stable life. And does he even know you're going? I shook my head. Doesn't matter whether he knows or not. But enough talk. Tonight we drink until we drop. Lucy ordered another round, and before we knew it, it was past midnight. Then my phone rang. Tomas. Where are you? His voice was tense. Why aren't you home yet? I tried to focus, steadying my voice. I'm at Lucis. Do you need something? Pause. Evelyn, do you know what today is? I frowned, thinking. Should I? Our anniversary. 3 years. I waited for you all night. I had forgotten. For every anniversary before this, I had been the one to plan everything. I remembered every single date. Last year I decorated our place, cooked his favorite dishes and waited for him to come home. When I finally called, it was Jessica who answered. Evelyn's calling you again, she had said teasingly. Then Tomas, annoyed, took the phone. What do you want? I'm out of town. But why was Jessica there with him if he was out of town? It's our anniversary. Did you forget? Tomas sighed, clearly exasperated. It's just a date, Evelyn. What's the big deal? We can celebrate next year. I had stared at the beautifully set table, the candles flickering uselessly. But I made dinner for us. I'm busy. Just eat without me. And that was that. Now thinking back, I felt an old sadness creep in. But I forced a light tone. It's just an anniversary. We can always make up for it another time. I'm exhausted, Tomas. Let's talk tomorrow. And with that, I hung up. For the first time in 3 years, I slept peacefully on our anniversary. By morning, Tomas had sent a string of texts. I didn't bother replying. I left Lucis' place and went straight to work. And there Tomas was waiting for me downstairs, holding a bag of breakfast. Evelyn, what's going on with you? He looked unsettled, uneasy. I shrugged. What do you mean? I'm doing great. I eat well, sleep well, I've never felt better. Before, my life revolved around him. I monitored every little thing, his late nights, his skipped meals. His every interaction with Jessica. It had drained me completely. No, none of it mattered. Evelyn, let me pick you up tonight, he said suddenly. Come with me to see my parents. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. Why? I had asked to meet them before. He had always brushed it off. It's not the right time. Now, out of nowhere, he was inviting me. Tomas took a deep breath. I know I've neglected you. I want to fix things. We should start planning our wedding. I froze for a second. Then, with complete indifference, I said, You handle it. I have work to do. His face fell. Shouldn't I be excited? Shouldn't I be overjoyed? He stood there for a long time, lost in thought. By the time he finally flicked away the last of his cigarette, I was already gone. That evening, I dressed up a little and waited by the door for Tomas to pick me up. Minutes passed. Then half an hour. Still nothing. I called. No answer. I texted. No reply. And then, almost instinctively, I opened Jessica's Instagram. Her latest post showed her laughing, clinging to Tomas' arm as he carried a pile of shopping bags. The caption read, "After all these years, whenever I say I'm bored, he's always there to keep me company." I liked the post. No wonder he didn't show up. He had been busy shopping with Jessica. I hailed a cab and went home. I wasn't angry. I made myself a simple plate of pasta and sat down to eat. Then the front door opened. Tomas walked in. And Jessica was right behind him. "Evelyn," she said sweetly, "Tomas spent the whole day shopping with me. I feel so bad for keeping him from seeing his parents." She tilted her head, feigning guilt. "You're not mad, are you?" Jessica clung to Tomas' arm, her gaze challenging as she looked at me. Tomas, looking guilty, quietly pulled his arm away. "Evelyn, I'm sorry. I'll take you to meet my parents tomorrow." "It's fine." I smiled as if I didn't care. "Have you two had dinner?" "I made pasta." I already knew that as long as Jessica was around, I would never meet Tomas' parents. But it didn't matter anymore. Jessica pressed a delicate hand to her chest, sighing. "Evelyn, this is a bit salty. I can't handle heavy flavors." Her tone was fragile, pitiful, designed to invoke sympathy. "I'll make you a salad," Tomas said immediately, standing up and heading to the kitchen. Jessica turned to me the moment he was gone, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Evelyn, do you think this ring is pretty?" She held up her hand, showing off a delicate diamond ring. "Tomas helped me pick it out," she continued, twisting it on her finger. "He said it suited me perfectly. Such a shame he couldn't get a matching one with me." I glanced at the ring, then smiled faintly. "Don't worry. You'll have your chance. I'll get a matching one with you someday." Jessica's smirk faltered slightly, but before she could say more, Tomas returned with her salad. She immediately switched gears, beaming. "Tomas, you're the best. Your cooking is amazing." She speared a bite of lettuce and sighed dramatically. "Whenever I was upset, Tomas would always cook for me, then stay with me until I fell asleep. I don't know what I'd do without him." Tomas coughed lightly, clearly signaling her to stop talking. I set my utensils down. Whenever I was upset, all Tomas ever said was, "It's fine. You'll get over it." So he could be gentle. He could take care of someone with patience. Just not me. "I'm full," I said, standing up. "You two enjoy. I'm going to rest." Tomas followed me into the bedroom. "Evelyn, I'm sorry." I smiled at him, calm and unreadable. "Don't worry about it. There's always another chance to meet your parents." He hesitated, then took my hand. "Evelyn, I promise I'll marry you. We'll have a beautiful wedding." Toss, my chest hurts. "Come take a look," Jessica's voice suddenly cried from the living room. Tomas dropped my hand without finishing his sentence and ran to her. I watched him go, then closed my door. He drove Jessica home. I spent the night alone, curled up in bed, my stomach aching from cramps. Sleep eluded me. At some point I got up, deciding to make myself some tea. Just as I stepped into the kitchen, Tomas walked back in. He saw my pale face and immediately moved to steady me. "Evelyn, you don't look well." I glanced at the steaming cup of tea he placed in front of me, feeling nothing but irony. Jessica was always the one he ran to first. And yet here he was, offering me warmth only after she was safely taken care of. "Thanks," I murmured. Tomas seemed troubled, but he said nothing. I gave him a small smile, drank my tea, then went straight to bed. The next night, Tomas hesitated before speaking. "Evelyn, my birthday is in a few days. I want to spend it at home. Just the two of us. Is that okay?" "You plan it," I said, pulling the blanket over me and turning away from him. "Turn off the light when you leave." Tomas stood there for a long time. For the first time, he wasn't sure where he stood with me anymore. And that uncertainty left a hollow feeling in his chest, one that grew heavier by the second. Tomas' birthday was approaching, so I carefully picked out a gift for him. I chose a men's ring, the matching pair to the one Jessica wore. I figured he would appreciate it. It would be my final gift to him before I left. No need to be cruel, at least not on his birthday. I'd wait until the celebrations were over before telling him I was leaving. Tomas picked me up, his car loaded with groceries. "Let's go home," he said, smiling. "We'll cook tonight. We'll have a nice meal together." When I reached for the back seat, he stopped me. "Sit up front," he said quietly. "I want to see your face." I didn't argue. I slid into the passenger seat without a word. Since it was his birthday, it didn't seem right to make him cook. He handled the washing while I did the actual cooking. During a break, I ordered a cake. At dinner, we sat across from each other. I reached into my bag and placed a small red velvet box on the table. "Tomas, happy birthday." His eyes lit up. But when I flipped open the lid, he froze. I blinked innocently. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I saw this picture saved in your phone. So I thought you wanted it. Jessica had wanted matching rings and Tomas had saved the photo in his album. Since I was leaving soon, I figured I'd be considerate just this once, help him complete the set. Why sneak around when they could wear them out in the open? Tomas slowly shook his head. Evelyn, don't you realize this is the same ring as Jessica's? I popped a shrimp into my mouth, chewing leisurely. I know, I said casually. But you liked it, didn't you? His expression tightened. But I want to wear a ring with you, Evelyn. You're my girlfriend. He reached for my hand. But I pulled away before he could touch me. I put down my utensils and met his gaze. Tomas, we both know each other too well, I said softly. Some things don't need to be spelled out. As long as we both understand, that's enough. Tomas opened his mouth to speak, then his phone rang. Tomas, Jessica's voice came through, panicked. The power's out at my place. I'm really scared. Tomas' brows furrowed. You can light a candle, he said flatly. Don't you have other friends? Today is my birthday, Jessica. I just want to spend it with Evelyn. Don't start this. Tomas, I'm sorry. She whimpered. But I'm really scared. Can you come over? I don't feel well. Tomas sighed heavily. Then to my surprise his voice remained cold. I'll call you an ambulance. If you're sick, go see a doctor. I'm not one, I can't cure you. I stared at him. So he had always known. He had always known she was acting. And yet he had willingly played along all these years. Tomas, I cut him off. It's fine. Let's not ruin the mood. It's your birthday, let's just enjoy it. But Tomas looked unsettled, almost restless. Even as we cut the cake, his mind was elsewhere. His hands moving without thought. Something was gnawing at him. Something he couldn't quite place. The next morning, before heading to work, Tomas had already prepared breakfast. When I stepped out of my room, he looked up. Eat up. I'll drive you to the office. No need. I can go on my own, I replied, keeping my distance. Tomas acted as if he hadn't heard me. Just eat. Thank you. On the way, he barely spoke, but when we reached my office, he stopped me before I could leave. Evelyn. Let's go out for dinner tonight. I made a reservation. I gave him a casual excuse. I have plans, I'm meeting Susan and a client. All right. Without looking back, I walked away. Meeting a client was a lie. I just didn't want to have dinner with him. After a long day at the office, I stretched, planning to take a cab home. But as I stepped outside, Tomas' car was still there. Waiting. I frowned. Tomas? He smiled slightly. I'm here to take you home. During the drive, he kept glancing at me. His unease growing. He had waited outside all day. That meant he knew I had never gone to meet a client. I simply hadn't wanted to have dinner with him. Evelyn, tomorrow I'll take you to meet my parents. They've been wanting to see you. I leaned against the window. All right. His parents wanted to meet me. I'd give them that courtesy. After all, I was only staying in this city for a few more days. Once we got home, I went straight to shower and sleep. I didn't say a single word to Tomas. He sat on the edge of my bed watching me in silence. Evelyn, I know I've let you down. He murmured. But please give me some time. I can change. Let's not break up so easily, okay? I kept my eyes closed, pretending not to hear him. After a long pause, he sighed and left for his own room. Once the door closed, I opened my eyes. Time could change a person, sure. But wounds didn't heal that easily. If this had been before, Tomas' efforts would have touched me. I would have forgiven him without hesitation. But now, watching him with Jessica didn't even hurt anymore. All I felt was relief. That was when I knew I didn't love him anymore. Tomas' parents had prepared a lavish meal for my visit. On the drive over, I pretended to sleep, avoiding conversation. When we arrived, he gently nudged me awake. His parents were already waiting at the door. Evelyn, we're so happy to finally meet you. His mother, Anna, greeted warmly, taking my hand. We've asked Tomas so many times to bring you over, she continued. But he kept saying he was too busy with work. Tomas stayed by my side while Anna excitedly chatted, filling my plate with food. His father joined in, asking about our relationship. So, Evelyn, when do you and Tomas plan to get married? We've been waiting for so long, he added with a hopeful smile. We can't wait for you two to have a little one. I froze. Their eager eyes were on me, expecting an answer. For a second, my mind drifted to my own father. Before he passed away, he had urged me to marry Tomas. But even after he was gone, we never fulfilled that wish. Would he be disappointed by my decision now? Before I could say anything, Tomas tightened his grip on my hand and turned to his parents. "We're getting engaged next month," he announced. I stiffened. Then quickly I pulled my hand away. Anna beamed. Overjoyed, she pulled me into a hug and unclasped her necklace. "This belonged to Tomas' grandmother," she said, pressing it into my palm. "He passed it down to me and now I'm passing it to you." Tomas smiled. "That makes you our future daughter-in-law." Before I could protest, Anna fastened the necklace around my neck. After graduating from college, someone suggested hosting a class reunion. Since I was leaving soon, I decided to go. Tomas and I had been in the same department, so we went together. As soon as we stepped inside, a figure rushed toward us and latched onto Tomas' arm. "Tomas." Jessica clung to him as if she were the rightful girlfriend. Most of the people here were old friends. They all knew about Tomas and me. Awkward glances flickered between them, waiting for my reaction. But I simply greeted everyone with a calm, easy smile, acting as if nothing was out of place. Tomas frowned and pried Jessica off. "Stop it." At some point during the gathering, someone asked, "So, Tomas, when are you two getting married?" "We're all waiting for your wedding." Tomas smiled. "Next month we're getting engaged." I silently took a sip of my wine. Jessica, as if staking her claim, tugged on his hand. "Tomas, I want that cupcake. Get it for me. You can't get it yourself?" Tomas sighed but still handed it to her. Then another classmate turned to me. "Evelyn, I heard you're moving to Manhattan next week?" I nodded. "Yeah. Just changing things up." The shrimp in Tomas' hand slipped from his fingers. He turned to me, stunned. After the reunion, Tomas dropped Jessica off first. Then just as we reached home, he suddenly stopped. "When did you decide to go to Manhattan?" His voice was tight. "Why didn't you tell me?" Standing in the garden, I took a deep breath. "I made the decision last month." I met his gaze. "But does it really matter whether I told you or not, Tomas? We both know the truth. There was no point in dragging this out any longer. We should break up." I had wanted to say those words for so long. Tomas grabbed my hand, his eyes turning red. "Evelyn, I know I messed up before. But please just give me another chance. I'll stay away from Jessica. I swear." Desperately, he pulled out his phone. "Look, Evelyn, I'll delete her contact right now." Tears welled in his eyes as he scrolled through his contacts, deleting one after another. His fingers trembled as they hovered over the screen. "You see, I deleted everything. Please just give me one more chance." I let out a quiet sigh. "Tomas, why are you doing this? This is the best choice for both of us." He was falling apart in front of me, and yet all I felt was exhaustion. I patted his back lightly. "Some things, once they build up for too long, can't be salvaged. You always knew Jessica was acting, and yet you still chose to believe her. Why? Because deep down you have feelings for her. That's why this is the right decision." I reached up and unclasped the necklace his mother had given me, placing it gently in his palm. "Tell your mother I'm sorry. She's a wonderful woman, I really like her. But I don't think this necklace belongs to me." Then I smiled. "Starting today, let's both live our lives the way we want." Tomas' hands shook violently as he gripped mine. "Don't," he whispered. "Please." But I gently pulled my hand free. "Tomas, I wish you happiness." And with that, I turned and walked away from the reunion, leaving behind the voices, the stares, the past. As I stepped into the night, a deep, overwhelming sense of relief filled my chest. I inhaled deeply. Finally, my life was about to begin. And that's my story. I hope it inspires you to never settle for less. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more.